Speaking at the national launch of the Nigerian Industrial Policy 2025, Africa's richest man, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, made a profound assessment that was basically saying, no power, no growth, highlighting the ceiling of what has come to be known as the Nigerian power cost places on the Nigerian industrial dream. Because when you can't keep the lights on, you can't keep the plants running. This problem has come to define the everyday Nigerian experience, and the term of NEPA is now transgenerational. And what for much of the world feels like a basic amenity is in fact a luxury. And make no mistake, no country industrializes without sorting out its power infrastructure. In fact, many factory owners have come to learn the hard way. In fact, stable electricity could drive down production costs in the country by 40%. Before one should write off the possibility of surmounting this seeming impossible mountain, one state in Nigeria is not only doing that, but also demonstrating practical blueprint that could end blackouts in Nigeria.
This video probably is the most complex, detailed and elaborate video on this channel. And the goal is to give you an intricate and bird's eye view of what the problem is and practical ways to solving it.
But just then, before anything, a quick crash course on how electricity moves from the generating station to your closet. You see, electricity goes through three stages. First is generation, then transmission and distribution. Power generation is the kinetic part of harnessing power sources such as gas, hydro, solar, and nuclear energy to produce electricity. These plants generate electricity that is then supplied to the grid. And when we talk about transmission, we're basically talking about the grid system, the more complex part of the whole stages. The grid system is basically the brain that regulates the supply of electricity. It's in fact the mathematical and the most delicate. Think of the electric grid as one giant synchronized machine stretching across the country. Every power plant spins at exactly the same speed to produce electricity at a steady 50 cycles per second. And that speed, the system, the frequency, is the heartbeat of the entire network. The moment homes, factories or cities switch on appliances, the load increases and generators must instantly produce matching power. If supply and demand are not equal in real time, the frequency drifts, signaling instability. I'm simply saying, each time you turn on your TV, air conditioner or fridge, the grid is what tells the generators the exact power to produce to meet that demand at that moment in real time. High voltage transmission lines carry this regulated power over long distances to reduce energy losses, while substations use transformers to step voltage up for transport and step it down for safe local use. Beneath the towers and wires is a layer of mathematics and control systems. Power flow equations balancing real and reactive power, protection relays detecting faults in milliseconds, and automated controls constantly tuning voltage, phase angles, and frequency to keep every rotating turbine in sync. In essence, the grid is not just infrastructure, it's a living physics-governed balancing act that must maintain perfect equilibrium every second to prevent overloads, cascading trips, and blackouts. So the grid isn't just transmission lines, but both the transmission stations that does the automated calculation, the step-up transformers from the generating plants, and the step-down transformers to the distribution phase, which is the final stage of the power journey, where electricity is stepped down from high transmission voltages to medium or then low voltages, like 33 kV, 11 kV, and finally 415 or 250 volts wires, so homes and businesses can use it safely. So where is Nigeria's problem in all this? Well, Nigeria produces a net 5,000 megawatts currently, but the overall generating capacity is actually more than that, about 11,000 megawatts. But the transmission capacity is about 5,000, placing a cap on the overall electricity potential of the country, which actually operates one national grid system. From the control centers and transmission stations to high-tension 330 kV lines lies the major issue of the country. This is compounded by various breakdown and mismanagement of generating plants. Now, because the national grid supplies the electricity that powers the country, one breakdown of a major generating plant could lead to total grid collapse. And it doesn't help matters that transmission infrastructure is controlled by the federal government, which has grown a reputation of inefficiency with various failed programs to fix this issue and even scandals to it. Even though the federal government keeps on announcing programs, projects, signing MOUs and closing deals, the transmission capacity is still pegged at 5,000 megawatts, which means the country will never realize its full energy potential. But that, however, is changing. First, in 2023, President Tinubu signed the electricity bill into law, which effectively deregulated power generation, transmission, and distribution, effectively taking the regulation out of the exclusive list, allowing states and even individuals and groups to regulate their electricity. This reform meant that the one single legal hurdle that makes stable electricity an impossibility was shelved off. So states now can generate and run their own independent mini-grid. An Abia state under Aliko Dangote has successfully shown that a decentralized independent grid system is maybe the way to go henceforth in tackling Nigeria's chronic power issues. While the rest of the country grapples with grid collapses, Aba in fact is unaffected and independent. In fact, the state celebrated 90 days of uninterrupted electricity, something alien in the country. But the magic isn't with the geometric power plant, but rather the fact that it's a ring-fenced area, which means it operates its own substation and transmission interface. So when electricity is generated at geometric, it doesn't go straight to the national grid, where it's redistributed across the country and hence vulnerable to grid collapses, but directly to its own infrastructure powering its own ring-fenced area, bypassing the 300 kV national grid lines. But the only drawback to this is that the power generated within this grid stays within its ring-fenced area. Any attempt to extend it beyond that means either effectively switching back to the national grid or having to expand its transmission and distribution infrastructure beyond its ring-fenced areas, which could prove to be not just a financial overreach, but also an infrastructural overreach too. So while Governor Oti's recommendation of extending electricity from the geometric to a center like Enugu at the just concluded Southeast Vision 2050 Summit, even though it sounds good on paper, can prove to become a draconian tax, but that might not even worth the cost, because that will entail an upgrade of existing infrastructure, which presently runs on more than 38 kV lines to 230 kV in order to keep pace with the energy load. But multiple ring-fenced grids constituted on ring-fenced areas across the country could do the trick. Let's say a state like Enugu harnesses its goal to build a 1000 megawatts or even a 250 megawatts power plant with its ring-fenced clusters. Or Lagos builds a gas plant fencing the entire free trade zone corridor with its independent grid. Imagine the effect on those economies, and maybe from those industrial clusters, states can upscale, including more parts of the state into its grid, and even expand if need be to neighboring states. Over time, as these grid clusters expand and appear across the country, the national grid itself is released of much of the load and becomes more stable and also serves as a backup grid to these independent grids across the country. And the good thing is that states themselves don't have to bear the entire cost of these projects. They can always resort to PPP arrangements and leveraging on the available energy sources, like states like Enugu and Kogi can take the lead in coal plants, while gas giants like Delta, Imo, Bayelsa, Rivers, and Lagos could lead in gas plants. And states like Ogun, with existing gas infrastructure like pipes running through their borders, can leverage that proximity to build generating plants and grid within the outer industrial corridor. And also states with other natural and topographic advantages can leverage off renewable sources, effectively stamping out blackouts across cities, urban and rural clusters, making it an energy revolution. The success of the Aba ring fence has shown a clear blueprint of solving the power crisis, which by now, one expects states to be racing to have their own independent power grids. Or maybe Nigerians should be pushing their governors towards that as priority number one. The fact is, no matter the flyovers, smart schools, light rails, free trade zones, even resources, if you don't have electricity, industrialization will only remain a pipe dream. Crippling power infrastructure is why most industrialists run at a loss and some cut corners, all stars, just to stay afloat. It slashes profits to almost net zero, and it makes importation more attractive and cheaper. The miracle of Aba is a testament that maybe, just maybe, the next generation might not have to shout up NEPA. So tell me what you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel and turn on your notification bell if you learned something from this video.